Right. Before we start anything, we're just going to do a quick audio check. How's it going? Are the levels good? Is it too quiet, too loud? Is it in both ears? Is it in... You know how it is here. Tech issues galore. So before we kick off the stream, I just want to check because my laptop died the other day. So yeah, thank you for everyone who kept me sane going through that palaver. It just completely died literally like 10 minutes before the stream. So firmware issue, managed to fix it. So I had to literally wipe the whole laptop and I'm starting from scratch. So I've had to set up all the stream and everything again. And I'm just like, I'm paranoid that something's been missed, but hopefully we're all good. It's okay. Levels are good. Look at that clean desktop. I know it's not my actual desktop. I've got two displays. This is the fake desktop that everyone sees. Right, what do we got? Okay, so Dan's managed to get the audio right. That's a promising start. It can only get better from here, right? Also, just to let you know, there is no rum and coke, Jatty. We've got sparkling water today. Just to let you know, there is a link to submit your design work in the stream description. You may need to hit refresh, or just use this link here. So basically, upload your PSD files, your Adobe Illustrator files, your JPEGs, PNGs, whatever you like, and upload it with just a bit of context as well. It's always nice when we kind of review the designs that there's a bit of context. If it's a kind of a more abstract design and it's not immediately obvious what it is, what it was for, what the project was, it's always great to include those details because me and everyone can just kind of be a bit more specific with the feedback, if that makes sense. So feel free to include as much information as you like. Hello, hello. I'm watching it with my friend on the road. Amazing, Sema. Hello, Ahmed from Palestine. Welcome. Right, well, I'm going to assume that everything's tickety-boo. Audio's all good. So, yeah, let's kick off the stream. Hello, my name is Dansky. That's not my actual name. It's Daniel, but you didn't need to know that. And today we're going to be doing design review. And we've got lots of different designs. We've got a nice selection, I think, of what you would call graphic design with a bit of illustration thrown in there as well. And yeah, this is going to be good fun. Good fun. I'm looking forward to this. Right, let's open up number one. This is by Danny Ellis. Okay. Oh, let's remove this little contextual thing. Hide that. Let's get that out of the way. Okay. Oh, go away, annoying pop-ups. Hate these blue pop-ups. They're great if you're new to Photoshop, but when you're trying to like demonstrate something, it's just like, get out of here. Right. Wild Urban Organics. Horny goatweed. Wait, what? What? Okay. Interesting. Boosts drive and libido. Is this... Oh, this might be the testosterone booster for animals. I think there was like another file with like a note on it. And it didn't make sense, but now it does make sense. Okay. Nice. So you can now boost the libido of your goat. Or other animal, I presume. If the person who created this is in the chat, please do feel free to add more context here. I really don't want to kind of misunderstand this, especially as we're talking about horny goatweed and, you know, goat libido. But yeah, onto the design, Dan. Come on, stay focused. So there's quite a lot happening here. Visually, it's very eye-catching. Wild Urban Organics. Yeah, it's an interesting logo. It's got like the whole design, right? This black and white, this typeface. They kind of strike through it there's elements of this that do feel like a bit kind of gym oriented. Like I would expect that some of these kind of styles to be on like a flyer or some advertising graphic for a gym. And I guess this is about performance in some ways. So it does feel sort of relevant. The logo feels a bit out of place. I don't know what you guys think. I'm not saying I dislike the logo per se, but it just feels a little bit out of place. It feels like a mishmash of styles here. It's quite odd actually in a way. You know, we've got the kind of clean ultra core font here. We've got this crazy sort of scratchy hand scrawled kind of booster text. We've then got something that looks like something similar to Bebas there. We've got their logo font, which is, well, that is definitely something. So, okay, that's 4 fonts. And then what do we got down here? Another kind of what looks like Bebas or something similar. So, yeah, I think around this area, there's quite a lot going on. And I'm not a massive fan of all of the different styles per se. Like I say, sometimes I get it. The logo is the logo. You know, you can't just say to a client, hey, let's switch up your logo because it ain't really working with my design, you know. So I don't know. Maybe this was the logo. This is what you got to work with. But, yeah, not crazy about that booster font either. I think what it is for me, there's a lot going on and we could really kind of strip this back and sort of simplify it a little bit. It's quite nice having the sort of wavy lines and the kind of texture separating different sections. So it clearly separates the design into different pieces. And it's done in an interesting way, you know, these kind of this zaggedy lines. It's not just like a straight cut. So, you know, points for creativity for sure. The gap here feels a bit strange. It does feel a bit odd. Like there should be sort of something there. It feels like a lot of stuff is kind of clustered around the center and the bottom part of the design. And there's a big emphasis on the logo. And I think clients do love their logo and they want their logo big, but no one cares. If I'm looking at this, you know, what is it going to do for me, this product? So you want the kind of the product, the benefits, all that sort of stuff front and center. Whereas actually it's kind of down here and it's pretty small, you know? Whereas if this is a great product, you gotta shout it from the rooftops, make it really big, really obvious. And then the branding, I think, would be better placed, perhaps even down the bottom somewhere. So if people want to kind of go and, you know, if they buy into the messaging and they think, oh yeah, okay, this is a cool product, I want to check it out. I've got your logo and your branding, your contact information, perhaps a website address. I've got it all there as well. Speaking of which, there isn't actually anything like that. So even a www. You know, so I think the hierarchy and the structure of this probably needs a bit of a rework. Yeah, the goat graphics interesting. It's kind of like a very stylized goat with some rather accentuated horns, let's say. Yeah, and we've got this kind of texture in the background. We've got these border lines. Yeah, it does feel like there's a lot of different things going on. Yeah, I quite like this here, where we can see the what looks to be, I don't know what these are specifically, but cinnamon, and it looks like cinnamon anyway. It's probably wrong. Or I'm guessing maybe it's these things, the goatweed and the tribulus, ashwagandha, damiana. So I'm guessing it's those things. But yeah, this is an interesting one actually. I mean, to simplify what I'm trying to say, I think there's too much going on and there's perhaps a few too many fonts. Maybe we kind of need to review the font choice a little bit as well. Yeah, too many design elements, just sort of lines and borders and strokes. That's actually adding more and just kind of busying everything up. But I think the actual overall structure as well could do with a rework, putting a bit more focus on the benefits of this and less focus perhaps on the branding. That's what I would say if I was to kind of simplify all the words that are very rapidly coming out my mouth. I think that's kind of where I'd land on it. What do you guys think? Is it a yay or a nay? And Jesse says natural Viagra, maybe. Yeah. Viagra for goats. I think adding earrings to the goat in your design is an interesting idea. Adding earrings? I mean, that would definitely turn it into something. Gazmen says, looks really busy. Yeah, definitely. I think I used to do this a lot more in my career, kind of in the earlier days as well. I would kind of add lines and kind of border corners and accents, and I would add a lot of these kind of design elements just purely because, you know, for creative reasons, just for the sake of it. And I think as I've gone on throughout my career, I do sometimes add those bits, but then actually when you take them away, so if you were to take away all of these unnecessary borders and things from the design and maybe just leave one or two, maybe just the gold strip here on the black, which looks quite nice, I think you might find that it's like, oh yeah, actually I didn't really need all that stuff. It's just adding more for the sake of it. The consistency police are coming out now. So here we've got a tiny gap. Down here we've got a bigger gap. So those things, you know, that border looks nice. The gold kind of gradient on the black to grey looks very smart. But let's just keep those widths consistent. I don't think the slash is really necessary. I think you can do some pretty cool stuff. Kind of, you could perhaps even slice the entire design in half and use that as a divider and have the kind of drop shadow effect. So it makes the design look like it has different layers to it. But I think just having a slash going through a word for the sake of it, I'm just not really feeling it. I think the execution of how it's kind of done here, I don't think it's really adding anything to the design. Icons are nice. Yeah, this is an interesting one. Boosts stamina, supports healthy hormone balance. But I think we're talking here about animals. But we've got pictures of humans. We've got human arm with massive biceps. And we have human running. So I don't know. Do those icons feel appropriate considering we're talking about, I presume, animals? I mean, I don't know. I'm assuming it's for animals. I might be way off the mark here. This might be kind of for humans, but it's something to do with animals. I'm not entirely sure. Do we have any goat experts or testosterone experts in the chat? Disconnect says, maybe organize all the spices scattered in the background of the white area. Yeah, so maybe you could spread these out a bit more and kind of occupy a bit more of this space. Jesse says the style of the goat should be the same as the logo or vice versa. Yeah, it's a strange one, isn't it? It's clearly not a photograph of a goat, but it's like a very stylized one. And it does have a very particular kind of quite dark sort of, yeah, artistic style to it. It's like lots of different types of design kind of all kind of thrown together. And I think it's not bad by any means. I think it just needs a kind of bit of work to kind of maybe strip out some of the unnecessary bits and kind of go perhaps with one particular style and just kind of, yeah, maybe lean down the dividers and borders a little bit. The top just doesn't seem to match the bottom style, says Mike. Yeah, okay, I agree with that. Hello, Dan. I was able to join the live after so much time. Mushaf, welcome. I'm glad you didn't join the other day because it was the live stream that never was. Rick Garrett says it's for humans. Horny goatweed is just a herb, nothing to do with goats. Excellent. Thank you, Rick Garrett, for clarifying that. I was clearly just drawn to the goat. And Dutchy says, wow, font count. Also, hi, Dutchy, welcome. Yeah, we've got quite a few fonts here. Oh, Mike says, I've been taking goat testosterone for a few years now. Probably explains my fits of spitting and fainting. Oh, no. You're not selling it, Mike. Okay, so I'm clearly very new to goatweed. Very eclectic style, says Roxy. 4 typefaces. Too many. Yeah, I think some designs you can get away with using lots of different typefaces, but it needs to feel necessary and intentional. I think sometimes when you just add typefaces, new typefaces, and you don't really need to use them. If you can keep the number of typefaces somewhere between 1 and 3, it's a really good guide. It's obviously not a rule by any means, but it's a good guide, especially if you're kind of starting out in design. One thing I see a lot of designers do, and actually people who aren't designers, people who are kind of perhaps doing their own branding, is they just go, even if they can, lay out a flyer on their own. One thing I see time and time again is people going crazy on the fonts. They just throw in all these different fonts, weird and wacky fonts, combinations that do not work. And it's just really unnecessary. It's just like, come on, let's keep it simple. MZ Tutorial says, where can I get these good textures? I mean, you can find textures all over the place. You can go on unsplash.com and get free textures there. There's Envato Elements, which is linked in the video description. And that's kind of where I get a lot of textures from. And that's just like a subscription to just everything. Design assets, photos, music, videos, brushes, textures, icons, UI kits, whatever you need. Envato Elements is just kind of like an all-in-one. First live joining, and this is what I'm welcome to. These streams seems fun. We do have fun here. We do have a lot of fun. We have even more fun when the streams actually work. Unlike Tuesday, but we don't talk about that anymore. Glad to see you got the box back up. Yes. This looks like a farm-based MMA-endorsed tribal supplement app. Tome, welcome. It's been a while, my friend. Okay, cool. Right, so that's that one. I think we've had a good critique of that. Let's move on to something else. We've got quite a few to get through. Right, let's whip this one up. This is by Afak. Complete your shopping, bill payments, food, and surprise gift deliveries with the delivery boy. Well, first off, the delivery boy doesn't look too pleased. He doesn't look like he's having a good time. So immediately, that's the first thing I notice. The happy box on the logo, well, it looks like you don't want to be there. But anyway, we'll ignore that for now. So design-wise, I like the simplicity. I love the simplicity of it. I think layout-wise, it's probably not quite there. Again, we've got... Actually, no, it looks like there is only kind of one typeface being used, but it's kind of looks a bit like Impact, actually. I'm not sure if that is Impact or something very similar to it. I'm not loving the layout here. I think you guys will probably agree with this. It's a fair critique. We've got the sort of complete here on the left, but then we've got this text on the right, this kind of indented but a bit smaller. I get why you've gone with the indent to kind of avoid crashing into this line here, but I would probably adjust that or move that kind of background element just to get everything to line up. And the readability here doesn't really kind of work either. You yeah, it's meant to read as one sentence. Complete your shopping, bill payments, food and surprise gifts with the delivery boy. But it doesn't really kind of flow particularly well. So I think the style of the word complete and all of this stuff here should kind of match, or kind of that relationship needs to be a bit tighter. So yeah, I probably wouldn't go capitals here because we've got quite a few words. Lots of words in capitals can become a bit laborious to read. It makes it much easier when it's kind of title case or sentence case. But yeah, I'd probably work these two together a bit more. And then yeah, this text down here, you could treat that differently. Delivering within Islamabad, so I'm guessing that's a particular area. So this would be your kind of your main title. That would be worked as a kind of its own kind of block. And then this would be the sort of subtitle, just saying, hey, this is where we do deliver. Also, you could probably, go on, let's get a color out. Let's get some teacher style marking on the go. I've missed this. I know it's only been a week, but I've missed it. So we can get rid of this. We don't need to say with the delivery boy because we've got enough words here already. We kind of really want to hit home exactly what this is. We've got the logo that says the delivery boy, so we don't need to kind of have that there. And we need to kind of rework this title. You know, some of these designs, I'd love to have a play around with these. This isn't an editable file, so I can't really move things around, but in fact, actually, I'm not going to put that arrow there because that whole top section needs reworking. That is probably more important than this big triangle. I see why they've kind of done it to dance around the triangle, but the information you're trying to convey and the structure of the overall design is much more important than this incidental background element. I do like it. I like the gradient. You've got one triangle in another. The flip of the gradient works really nicely. And the thing I love about that triangle as well is it introduces angles to a design that is going to be on a piece of paper that is essentially square. So it's just kind of, it creates a bit more visual interest, and it can sometimes, using angles in this way, can kind of lead the viewer down the page as well. It depends what it is. Particularly for UI design, angles can be incredibly useful there. I feel like the logo's a bit shoehorned in here. Yeah. The logo feels a little bit shoehorned in there. I'd probably put that down the bottom with the contact information. So I definitely wouldn't do this. I feel like the person's done this because there's a lot of information down the bottom, so we couldn't quite fit it all in. If that's the case, I would make the text a bit smaller, or if it then becomes too small, I would consider stacking these 1, 2, 3 on top of each other. And actually, what you could do to fix the alignment issue is you could actually flip this triangle the other way around, flip the graphic of the delivery driver the other way around, and that would enable you to left align the title. So we don't need to do any of this crazy kind of alignment here. We could left align everything. And then we could also left align 1, 2, 3 on the contact information, and then put the delivery boy logo in the bottom right corner. And then we've still got that space for the QR code, which can go somewhere. That's probably what I would do. I wish there was an editable file. This one would be a good one to edit. Also, technical details. The shadow's cut off here, so that needs to be a bit tighter. Yeah, just around the edge here, the cutout. In Photoshop, I would cut into that a few pixels and just add like 0.3 to 0.5 on the feathering. Add a mask and you could soften those edges a little bit so we don't get any of that kind of fringing around the edge. You could probably bump up the glare just around these edges here to try and introduce, just to try and make it look a bit more like he's coming out the phone. Let's see if I can do that really quickly. Might not be able to. Might need a bit more oomph. Yeah, something like this. Not so much that it's bleeding too much onto the character, but it just kind of, you know, you're just adding a little bit more to make it feel like he's coming out of the phone. And you could even blur some of these elements, but that's neither here nor there, really. Yeah, just sort of the pixelation. I think the phone graphic just needs a bit of tightening up. And you might need to remove the branding as well. Might not be a bad shout just to remove that. Yeah, in terms of background, the gradient, obviously printing gradients, just get a proof of that print before you commit to a 10,000 print run, just to check the gradients have printed correctly. Sometimes, depending on the printer and the printing process, you can get banding. It's kind of like what you get in Photoshop sometimes, where you can see the stages between every step in the gradient, and it's not ideal. So if you are going to play around with gradients in a design, just make sure it looks good on a proof before you approve the final print run. Gasman says the red color doesn't suit this type of information either. No, I would agree. It does stand out. It looks, yeah, it does stand out as a bit, I don't know, yeah, it feels very out of place in the context of the rest of the design. Zico, hey, what's up? Where do we send our designs? There is a link in the stream description. So there is a link and you can upload your PSD files and your Illustrator files there. Disconnect says, less is more, missing white space. Yeah, I think in this one, I wouldn't say they've added too much. I think actually what they've added is nice. Like, you got bits of space. There are pockets of space here. But I think the alignment and the overall structure of the design needs to be changed to make the actual kind of the content and the text and the information being conveyed to make it flow a bit more. Man, I'd love to work on this one. If there was a PSD file, I'd love to have a crack at this. Yeah, so the biggest thing is I'd flip the triangle in the boy graphic with the driver chap here. Left align a lot of that text, move the logo down the bottom, and just kind of tidy up the information that's being conveyed, because there isn't too much. But yeah, that's what I would do on this one for sure. Madman says the delivery boy is the brand. It should be its own thing, or even the logo itself. Yeah, let's have a look at that logo. Yeah, I mean, we could go in and critique the logo. I think that this part here, that the actual logo mark, the box with the kind of tape and the smiley face and the little whooshy kind of lines, I think that's kind of cute actually. In terms of this double line underneath and the typeface they've gone with for the actual text, I don't like that at all. It's quite small, but yeah, I feel like the actual kind of smiley box is actually quite cute. It's just the rest of the logo I'm not a massive fan of. In terms of especially the size of the logo mark in relation to the type, the proximity between them all, it's just a bit too tight. Yeah. Few things I'd do there. Complete isn't a word that grabs someone's attention. Its hierarchy implies it should be a focal point, but it ends up rather weak. Yeah, that's a fair point. So perhaps a different word or a different way to kind of reword this entire top section in a way that is a bit more compelling. So, I mean, I guess one example for this would be complete your shopping, bill payments, food, and surprise gift deliveries. That's a very practical, functional, this is what the service does. But in actual fact, you might have more success trying to sell the benefits of what that does rather than the thing itself. So you could, for example, instead of having that kind of description of what it is, you could have that description elsewhere in the design. you know, very kind of, this is what it does. We can complete your shopping, bill payments, food, and deliveries. But what's the benefit to the customer of that, or the person seeing this flyer? You know, you don't have to do all this stuff. You know, your shopping, bill payments, and deliveries are all taken care of. So what does that mean? Well, you save time. It's going to make your life easier because you don't have to worry about doing this. So I would, maybe lean into that, you know. Save time and make your life easier with Delivery Boy, or save time and make your life easier by completing your shopping, bill payments, blah, blah, blah. So you can kind of separate those two out. You've got the benefit to the person seeing this that is going to grab their attention and make them go, oh, okay, that's cool. That will help me. Then you've got the functional, what it does underneath, together with where the deliveries are. So in this case, Islamabad. That's probably how I would do it. Let's remake the header section, says Ozan. I really want to see what you're going to do there. Yeah, I think some of these designs, sometimes I get the PSD files and the Illustrator files, and I can do that and have a bit of a play, but this one doesn't have one, unfortunately. I just wanted to say that you are a very good designer. Damn your mouth. Damn my mouth. Thank you, I think, even though you've just condemned my mouth to damnation. But yeah, thank you. Oh, thank you, Dutchy. That's very kind. He's so critical in a supportive way. Oh, yeah, for sure. I'm not here to knock anyone down. Everything I'm saying is just sort of, you know, just think of it as I'm saying it with love and caring, and because I actually care. Even if someone's done a design that's brilliant, I'll try and provide something that can be useful in some sort of way. You know, and it's always going to be my honest thoughts. I'm never going to sugarcoat anything. So, you know. But at the end of the day, it is just my opinion. So, you know, if people don't like it, that's totally fine. I'm just one ginger with a microphone. I've started asking how would Dansky do it when trying to help others with design. Oh, cool. Oh, that's so cool. Madman says red and blue is jarring. Dark blues or greens would look nicer, I think. Yeah, I think someone else mentioned the red. Danny, welcome back. Ariel, hello. Dutchy says try to include you or your delivery boy in the copy. Okay, yeah, so maybe reword the copy. So you're actually speaking to the person reading it rather than kind of as in like a kind of a separate concept. That's a good point. Oh no, Danny, this will be my last live for a while as I start an in-office job soon. Soon? I can't speak. These have been hugely enjoyable, helpful. I'll check out the videos from the streams in my own time. By the way, crave more After Effects, Taz. No, Danny, you just have to kind of watch the live streams on the sly. Just wait till no one's looking. It's fine. Right, amazing. I think we've critiqued this one enough. Next one. Okay, this one is much more illustrative. I'm not an illustrator by trade. So I kind of wanted to show this really because it's just absolutely awesome. We do have some kind of lettering and text in here, but there's not like a million things for me to critique. Jet Set Radio. Yeah, this is so cool. I mean, this is really giving me Gorillaz vibes. You know the band Gorillaz? I'm absolutely loving the style. Yeah, it's so cool. Really kind of hand-drawn. And they've got this sort of checkerboarding pattern over it that gives it like a really nice texture. And we've got these paper creases as well. So the whole thing just, it feels, even looking at this on a screen, it feels very real. It feels like I could reach out and actually pick up a piece of paper because they've added that kind of, that texture you can see across there. And then they've added these sort of grunge paint splats as well. Just a really cool illustration. And in terms of the text here for the title or the logo, whatever this is, it's just, I mean, that is definitely some custom design work. That isn't a font there. And the thing is with this, because it's so illustrative and it has its own unique kind of style, it's a funny one. Typographically, I could go and critique this and say, oh, the spacing's a bit inconsistent there and the angles don't line up. But you can see that this is intentional. Like here, I could say, oh, this is a bit of a strange T and the top of the E's a bit big and the angle is a bit different. But that's the style they've gone for. That is that kind of very kind of, I'm not sure what style you'd call it really. It's kind of like a cutout kind of style, like it's been pen tooled but very quickly. And then they've kind of embellished that more with the borders as well. So the borders intentionally don't match. So yeah, my normal sort of technical execution critique doesn't really apply here, I don't think. Yeah, so cool. Really, really cool. And you can see they've continued the use of angles throughout the rest of the design. So all these kind of bits here, it's all just very random and chaotic, but in the best way possible. The only thing I would probably critique is, you know, do you want to force justify this text? Yes, it's a nice solid block, and I get why some people would do that. But, you know, if that was left aligned and you had consistent spacing between the words, that's literally the only thing I would kind of point out. But, I mean, clearly this person knows what they're doing to be able to produce this. So I'm going to assume that they would have left aligned it if they wanted to, but they didn't, and they chose to go with the force justify, and hey, that's fine. Ida says, sent in a design, kind of nervous, lol. It's fine, honestly, don't be nervous. Don't be nervous. You know, everything that I may or may not say is just there to help. So, you know, it's not a competition. It's yeah, it's hopefully what I say will be helpful. So don't be nervous. You can only learn from it, even if it's just my opinion. Jatty says, I do like the style, just not a fan of the hard to read text. Yeah, I mean, I didn't actually see this at first. I guess that could be another good critique, actually. I didn't actually acknowledge that first. I do love the way I was thinking like, oh, what if you made the actual words white? It would clearly stand out. But then it just wouldn't fit with the rest of the design in the same way. So, yeah, I don't know. Or maybe this bit here, this block of text, just needs a subtitle. Something to kind of draw your eye to the information on here. Maybe. Yeah, I think as a graphic it looks awesome. Like I could imagine this as a poster on a wall somewhere. But how well does it communicate information? Yeah, maybe a couple tweaks. Maybe even just a bolder header here. A few words just to kind of hook you in, because this title's quite abstract. It doesn't really do that. So maybe just something, and then you've got the blurb underneath. It's kind of like you've got the sort of main title that's quite like it blends into the design. You've got the body copy, but you've got no subtitles in between. It's like they kind of just opted to skip over that. So, but yeah, a really cool piece of illustration, and I had to show that one. Dutchy says, like a cool, wonky cartoon style. Dilshan, hello. Just tuned in. Welcome. Alok, hello again. That's a good suggestion, Jatty. Maybe have the body text with the blue background. Yeah, so you could even... I can try and do this. I mean, they've gone with, very kind of unpredictable angles. So I guess you could do... Oh no, I've just made that as a path, haven't I? Silly ginger. Right, let's fill this in. Yeah, so I guess you could do something like this. Hopefully this will work with a blending mode. No, not really. Is there a magic blending mode? That, where's it gone? That's kind of the closest thing I was trying to get to, but imagine instead of that being like a dark purpley color, it's a blue instead. Yeah, I don't think I can create that here, but yeah, something like that, some sort of container. And then above, you could probably have another one with an equally wonky cutout effect, and then a sort of title to kind of more easily convey the information, perhaps. Mike says, nice illustrations. Curious how much of this one was hand-drawn versus was done in Photoshop or Illustrator. The color palette's interesting. It feels 70s or something. Yeah. I mean, if I had to guess, I'd say, if I was just purely guessing, I would say hand-drawn sketch for the characters, live traced in Illustrator. I was going to say colored in Illustrator, but don't know. Looking at some of the kind of little details here, it might not. It might be actually Photoshop. Textures and things could easily be Photoshop. The brush work on there. Photoshop brushes. Yeah, I think the coloring might be Photoshop actually. Not because Illustrator's bad for coloring, it's actually perfect, but actually they've deliberately gone, I assume it's deliberately anyway, they've gone outside of the lines here. So by coloring it in Photoshop, you can kind of get that sort of more hand-drawn, hand-painted feel for the illustration. But yeah, turning all this into a vector first would be a good shout. But then do you know what? Zooming in on this, this doesn't look like a live trace, a lot of this. Some of the detail here is too fine to be a live trace. Live trace, the results sometimes aren't optimal. You know, there's only so granular the detail can get with live trace. So I don't know, actually. I'm kind of, yeah, like here, I'm actually leaning towards they got a sketch, scanned it in, and did the whole thing in Photoshop. Actually. Dutchy says, I'd like to see the Jet Set Radio logo maybe have a touch of a drop shadow to create some mild separation. Yeah, I don't know how a drop shadow would really work with this. I think it would have to be like a hard drop shadow. Yeah, I think you could probably do something to kind of separate it a bit more, but I don't think you could get like a soft feathered drop shadow in there. It just wouldn't really fit with the style. Wait a second, isn't that the exact same images as Jet Set Radio used on their video game? I'm not sure. Let's have a look. Jet Set Radio. Oh, interesting. It's a 2000 action game developed by Smilebit. Oh. Interesting. Right, let me show you this. So someone's taken elements of this. This is for the Dreamcast. Let me show you that. So they've taken the illustrations No, they're not the same illustrations. It looks like Jet Grind Radio. Oh no, Jet Set Radio. Or are they two different games? Jet Grind and Jet Set. Yeah, so I can't really tell, to be honest, if they've taken those graphics from the game or if they've just redrawn the characters themselves. So this is their own, like having their own go at it. Well spotted. I saw my work in the live thumbnail. Hello. Yes, I imagine you did. We will be getting there. Dilshan says, cut out the text part and put a blue shape behind it, then use blend in to remove the red bit around the text. It might work. What are your opinions on Live Trace, by the way? I've been using it a lot recently, but gotten mixed reactions from others when they see its effects. Yeah, that's a good question. I think Live Trace has been around for so many years now. Like I was using it at the beginning of my career, like, which is like what, 17 years ago now, 18 years, I forget, something like that. And whilst they redesigned the panel in Illustrator this year, so it got a kind of fresh coat of paint and a few more features, I don't know how much work was done under the hood on improving Live Trace itself. There are certain settings you can use that will give you a better result. I think I did a YouTube short on it recently. If you check the YouTube shorts on my channel, there's one with a puppy, and that will give you some good settings to kind of bring out a bit more of the granular, grainy details in a Live Trace or image trace. But yeah, it does have its trade-offs. You do use you lose a lot of the kind of finer detail, but you gain the fact that it then becomes a vector. So if you can get an image trace that you're happy with that does have enough detail, that vector can be scaled to any size. Then you can scale it up to the size of a building if there was a printer big enough. Whereas with the raster-based graphic, it would just pixelate and get worse as it gets bigger. So as long as you can get a decent trace, it can be pretty useful. Right, there we go. Let's move on to the next one. Right, God, we've got quite a few to get through. Let's speed this up a little bit. Okay. Right. I'm going to say Jiwan. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. And this looks to be a car wash, pollution check center and service station. Okay, something to do with cars. So a few different things. And speaking of Live Trace, that looks like one right there. So not that one. I don't know what this graphic is or where it's from. Kind of feels a little bit, especially with these white bits here, it feels like this image has been kind of grabbed from somewhere and then just plonked on the design. Not loving that font. The font here kind of feels a little bit kind of, what's the right word? It just doesn't, it feels one step away from Comic Sans, if I'm honest. And we don't need to talk about Comic Sans. Probably more so than Numbers here. I feel like we could just keep that as a nice, clean, simple font. I think even Arial or Helvetica would work better than this kind of sort of more I want to say childish, but I don't mean that in an offensive way. I mean, it just feels very kind of, I don't know, a bit like a little bit of a scribble, you know, like a doodle. And I feel like it needs to kind of just be a bit more legible and just a little bit smarter, maybe more professional. Yeah, I feel like this style of font is a bit more sort of bit more young and playful, and it doesn't really fit with the kind of, you know, this is something to do with cars. And obviously you want to convey a sense of professionalism when you're saying that you're going to fix or work on somebody's motor. So yeah, I mean, I would say like this font here, this is probably a step in the right direction, but we've talked about white strokes before. Try and avoid them if you can. They can look good, but not like this. You know, black text and white strokes does have a tendency to look not great. I don't know if that's a personal opinion. I mean, well, it definitely is a personal opinion, but I think other people in the chat have echoed a similar sentiment towards black or dark lettering with lighter strokes like this. Yeah, I think I'd probably just, even if you just keep it a solid color, it will look better a lot of the time. But then this down here could be in the same sort of font. You know, again, we're using a different font kind of for the sake of it, really. And then we've got this different font down here from this graphic, and then we've got another font over here. It's just a little bit too font happy. The phone icon as well, that's kind of getting lost in the background. And we've already got the text mobile number written, so I don't think we need to kind of, you know, the phone graphic doesn't need to be there. And it's so sort of hard to see anyway, it kind of gets lost in the background and isn't really necessary. The green kind of swooshy thing here, I think that looks nice, and it's an interesting kind of, again, we've got a design, you know, the edges of a design is very kind of horizontal and vertical, very squared off. So adding angles or any kind of curves like this is always an interesting way to just break up that horizontal and vertical aspect in any design. It just makes it more interesting. And it's a good way to kind of separate off this car on the right. This curve, though, I don't know what happened with this curve, but it's if you're going to go smooth curves, do it like this first one here. And then just kind of, yeah. I mean, they're all pretty good, actually. The curves aren't too bad. It's just that last one is just kind of, whoa, it's kind of a bit wonky. So that needs to be a nice smooth curve. This looks to be like a live trace graphic. So what I was saying a minute ago is that, you know, you can use live trace. If you're happy with that result, you could scale that now to any size. But obviously, you know, you're never going to get the kind of detail and clarity that you get from a photograph. So it is a little bit of a trade-off. Geo says not good choices of fonts though. No. I think probably the font choice and the sort of font treatment as well in terms of the stroke. But the good news is that is very easily fixed. We could very easily just switch this font up to something simple. And then just, you know, just make it white. You could make the main title white, solid white. It would stand out very clearly against the green. You'd have a nice amount of contrast. And then underneath you could go with, again, white, smaller font, maybe a different weight, less bold perhaps, or you could go with a black. You could try a few different things there. Also this border as well, it's kind of has inconsistent weights. It kind of tapers off to one end here. And I'm not sure why it does that. I'd probably just get rid of the border altogether, to be honest. Also the logo, again, you remember I said earlier that companies love their logo. Their logo is jumping out the most out of everything. So this is a, you know, a car service with, you know, that offers X, Y, and Z, and the logo is the biggest and boldest thing on the page, and it's grabbing the attention of the eye with that bright red color. So I feel like the logo should be there, it should be visible, but what is this company really selling? You know, my eye is just being drawn to the logo with that use of red. So I think instead, you know, you could probably use that red to pull out the key information about what the business does. Tome says no white outlines. Azeb says it's too heavy on the left side. Should the car on the right be bigger? Yeah, I think as well. You've got the sort of the car wash graphic here. I think you're probably on something this. I'm not entirely sure what this graphic is for. If it's like a web graphic or for a particular kind of sized piece of print material or something. I'm not really sure. Maybe it's a sign, a bit of signage. It's quite big. It's very big, actually. 140 centimeters. That is rather big. That's almost 1.5 meters. So actually, if I'm guessing, which I absolutely am, I'd say it's for some kind of sign to possibly go, outside of the center. Could be the main kind of sign promoting the business. So I think, I'd probably just go with one car graphic rather than two and make it a good graphic. And because it is such a large graphic and it seems to be some signage here, I'm guessing that's why they've used the live trace on the car, because they can live trace it and scale that up to this size and it would maintain like a high quality. And actually on a sign as well, a lot of people wouldn't really kind of pay too much attention to that. Yes, a photo is of course going to look better, but for people just driving past or looking at a sign at a glance, they wouldn't necessarily pick up on a lot of details on that. I would. I'm sure we would. we would look at it and scrutinize the heck out of it. But that's where live trace can be useful sometimes. No, exactly, Sema. Yeah, that is pretty much the WhatsApp logo, isn't it? And it kind of gets lost in the background anyway. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm reading this wrong. I'm guessing that this is the mobile number and this is the number for their WhatsApp, perhaps. But yeah, there is a lot of stuff. Yeah, trying to sort of vie for your attention with this one, especially that bright red logo. Pollution. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think the spelling, I'm guessing that's meant to say pollution check. But I don't know. This, I'm not sure if this is a non-native English speaker. But I mean, sort of spelling's easily fixed. Yeah. Oh, I mean, yeah. I'm sort of just trying to visualize what I would do here. So I think to summarize, what I would do is I would shrink this logo down. I would have the logo in a solid color with maybe a white border or something. I would just, if we can get away with not using that red for the logo, just have like a neutral version of the logo for this ad. Shrink that down so it occupies the space here. Perhaps use that red to do something around here. Add some sort of border or container to make the text stand out. Strip out the stroke, have the text maybe white, black, solid color, lots of contrast. Same font, perhaps smaller, lighter weight, maybe a different color, and another contrasting color for the text here. For example, you could have a red block. You could have the header in white, the mobile number in black. So you've got like a red, white, and black color palette, and then there's lots and lots of contrast. Get rid of the car wash graphic from here, or keep it, or whatever. Just have one car graphic, make it a good one that kind of encapsulates everything that the business does, and have that on the right hand side. So we've got the main information, the focal point in the center, that is like the hero. We've got the car graphic as well, and then we've got the logo that's kind of over here, visible, but it isn't screaming in our face trying to grab all of our attention. Also, please fix that curve. In a nutshell, that's kind of me trying to condense it. Sorry I'm late. How'd things go at the mall? Did pop in to get a new handbag and your laptop fixed. Hey Christian, welcome. No, so I managed to fix the laptop myself. I'm clearly very proud of that. Well done, me. It was a firmware issue. So restarting the laptop, something went wrong and it wouldn't boot up after just restarting. So I had to actually use another Mac that I've got and connect that with a USB-C cable to the laptop, and then use something called, I think it's like Apple Configurator, to use the Mini to revive the laptop. So the Mini basically, it was basically like in a game, your player goes down and someone comes and revives you. It was pretty much like that, but in the kind of the laptop version. So yeah, it was pretty glad to get everything up and running. I had to wipe the laptop, so all the stream stuff, I had to kind of reinstall that. So, everything's going well so far. I haven't messed up the audio yet, but that was a right old palaver. Which website is best to use free stocks for photo manipulation? All right, free. Try these two. There are many more, but sometimes the same search on both of these can give quite different results, and some sites are better for certain things than others. So yeah, definitely give those a look. Oh, also, while we're here, if you're interested, I have a full Adobe Illustrator masterclass. So if you're thinking of learning Adobe Illustrator or you want to become a graphic designer, I teach everything in this class. So there is a link there. And if you go into the stream description, there's also a code for 15% off the course. And you not only get the entire course, which will teach you everything I know with 6 hours or so of video, but you get access to the student community. So if you ever have a question or you want to know something about design or you'd like feedback on your work, as a community member, you can literally just direct message me. You can post in the community, you can message me. So if you ever get stuck, I will be on hand to help you. So yeah, that's my course, and it's really good. I know I'm obviously biased saying that, but I'm very, very proud of that course. I finally downloaded my entire knowledge of Illustrator into a course, finally. Right, next up we've got this one, premium luxury perfume, Fahrenheit. Ooh, very intriguing. Okay, initial. I always focus on the same things. You guys know me by now. So immediately, please, let's just close the leading, the space between those two lines. Let's get those lines a little bit tighter together. I'm okay with the central alignment here, even though they're both central, because we do have there is some symmetry and some balance to this. Everything is very kind of symmetrical. I'd probably take out the www dot, just because then the word length of christiandior.com is kind of similar to the phone number. So you're just kind of, all you're doing is making it more symmetrical. And does anyone use www dot these days? I don't know. I feel like we don't really bother with that. It's just kind of a given, really, isn't it? Oh yes, free pick. That's another good one. Nice one, Luca. Oh, amazing. Thank you, Christian. The class is epic. Nice. Can I get that in a review, please? Epic course. That is one large beverage container. No, I think it's a perfume, Mike. I wouldn't recommend drinking it. Yeah. So, okay, what do I think? I like the word Fahrenheit, the product name, being in a really cool, interesting, sort of elegant font. I think it's got this kind of beveling effect on it, which I'm not a massive fan of. You can probably, it's very, 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 very dark. I think having it in this gold sort of text can look quite classy, but the beveling, which kind of chops out parts of the letter, I would probably lose that effect. If you're going to go gold and make it look gold and shiny, make it look gold and shiny. This text up here I would then treat differently to the main kind of product name, even if it's just keeping the same font but having it in white, solid white, for example, something like that. So it just kind of puts the emphasis on the actual product name, Fahrenheit. It looks unique. It looks very kind of stylized in its own way. And then whatever you do with this kind of title, the subtext up here, mimic that down here. Something very, very similar. Just real simple. Limited time 30% special offer. Right. Okay, so for this looks like it's kind of been drawn, the shape of a tag and the texture added. I would try and find a photo of a real tag. I think if you're going to Photoshop it onto the throne, the product image here is great. This is clearly like a high quality, professionally shot image of the product. So I think it needs to have a realistic tag. I wouldn't go with a silhouette, and I certainly wouldn't just add a texture to the silhouette. And then we've got, yeah, you can see the same sort of treatment there. And then we've got different fonts here, and we've got this big font, and it feels a little bit messy here. We've got the dividers. So I think what I would do personally is just make this look like a real tag and Photoshop it. If you want to have it on there, or just leave the tag off altogether. Perhaps having the tag around the bottle doesn't really kind of help sell it as this sort of high-end product. I don't know, maybe you could have the 30% somewhere else in the design rather than the tag. And the image of the throne is quite low res as well, so I'll try and find a higher res image, or if you can find like an AI upscaler, just try and upscale that image so the quality of the throne matches the product. Also, you got the Christian Dior logo in the background. Does it need that? Probably not, no. I like the simplicity of it, and I love the symmetry of it as well. But yeah, I think the sort of the technical execution side of things just needs a little bit of tightening up in terms of image quality. And the execution of the tag style thing over here. Yeah, just how the kind of logo's treated as well. Or the product name, I should say. Mr. Awan, hey Dansky, I want to learn social media advertising graphic design. So people said to me that you learn Photoshop only and no need to learn Illustrator because everything you will make in that. I would probably learn Illustrator, to be honest. Illustrator, you can do graphic design, UI design, logo design, brand design, typography design. Did I say icon design? Background design. You can design almost everything in Illustrator. Print material, business cards, flyers, posters, signage. Illustrator is like, if I had to pick one for graphic design, it would be Illustrator. Photoshop's great when you want to kind of integrate photo manipulation or obviously work on photography kind of stuff. But if I was doing actual graphic design, like a poster or something, I wouldn't do it in Photoshop. I'd do it in Illustrator, and then I would bring in the PSDs and the Photoshop work to Illustrator. Just because Illustrator's kind of, it's got more tools that are designed for graphic design, but also it's easier to export for print from Illustrator. It's just got like more features. Even though it's called Illustrator, it's actually, there's way much more than illustration you can do with it. But the sentiment I get from a lot of people is that, like, I think a lot of people just naturally learn Photoshop. It's probably one of those ones that is perhaps taught more in school, taught more maybe at college or university. People just seem to sort of, even people that I know that kind of do their own in-house design work, they're not designers, but they'll do a bit for the business. They know a bit of Photoshop. They know a little bit. And I think that generally the sentiment is that Illustrator looks quite overwhelming. When people know a bit of Photoshop, moving to Illustrator can feel quite intimidating sometimes, and and that's fair, because it's been around since 1987, I think. It's an absolute monster of a program nowadays, packed full of features, and if you're just stepping into it now, it can feel pretty overwhelming, which actually nicely segues me onto this. So if you want to join a free 30-minute webinar and you've thought about learning Illustrator, then give this a watch. It will introduce you to Illustrator and the basic tools and just a whole bunch of things. It will give you kind of a taste of what Illustrator's like and some of the stuff that you can do with it. So yeah, Mr. Owan, if you want to check out Illustrator, have a go with that webinar, see how you find it. But yeah, that being said, you can use Photoshop, but if it was graphic design, personally, I would go with Illustrator and then do the photo stuff in Photoshop and bring that into Illustrator. Tome says the bottle looks like a fire truck light, at least a US truck near me. Oh yeah, I suppose it does look a bit like a fire truck light, doesn't it? God, it's so funny. I remember when I went to San Francisco in 2018, and I saw one of the sort of, I don't know if they're just like American style fire trucks, but it just looked like it looked like it was out of a different time period. It was so strange, but like amazing at the same time. I don't know if all American fire trucks are the same in all of the different states. It was like seeing a school bus as well. They have those bright yellow school buses like from The Simpsons. It was so surreal kind of seeing that. Again, I'm not sure if that's like a thing that is in every single state, like the same kind of design for fire trucks and school buses. But yeah, that was an experience. Zico says the composition is very good. Yeah, I think generally the general composition and the layout is very good. Clear title, product, focal point, lots of space around it, not too cluttered. And if we could just knock off that www dot down the bottom, we've got the phone number and the website, and the whole thing has a really nice degree of symmetry to it. And I feel like this is the sort of just going through all these different designs. I think a lot of these designs I'm reviewing, there's like a checklist of things that I would sort of look for in a design. And I feel like today, a lot of the ones we've looked at, some of them have done like some of the things well and then not so much the other stuff. But whereas this one is it's got like a good composition and a very kind of simple symmetrical layout, unlike some of the other ones. But then the technical execution here is kind of where this design is somewhat lacking and needs a bit more work. So I think, that's probably that's at least how I try to create my design work, is I try to tick all of those boxes within a design. So I'm looking at the composition, the layout. Is there a good hierarchy and structure? Is the messaging right? Image quality. Is everything as high res as it possibly can be? Technical execution. Do my shadow, if I photoshopped any shadows in or product images, do they look realistic? How's my spacing? So maybe I should put together a checklist. There's kind of like a list of things that I just kind of mentally check for in a design. So when I'm doing my own stuff, it kind of I'm looking for those same things in my own work. Phil K, afternoon, Dan. Hello, Phil. Good to see you again. We've not seen Phil B today yet, but there's still time. Let's just keep it calm. Let's keep it civil, okay? Mark Todd says a brand guide could help influence this design in a more cohesive direction. Yeah, I'm sure Christian Dior have got their own brand guidelines as well. My friend said to me, if you want to learn, then learn CorelDRAW, not Illustrator. I started using CorelDRAW many, many years ago, actually. Right at the beginning of my career. I was always Adobe from when I kind of first started learning Photoshop in school when I was like 16, 17. But then when I got my second job, the lead designer there, he was like very much into CorelDRAW and I was more Adobe. So we kind of learned about the other software and kind of swapped knowledge, if you like. I taught him about the Adobe stuff and he taught me how to use CorelDRAW. So it was kind of really good in that sort of way. But I mean, it depends really. I've got no idea what CorelDRAW is like nowadays. I don't know how it's priced, if you can buy it outright or if it's a subscription. So I think if budget is a factor, then yeah, maybe look at something that you could buy outright. Like I've never used it that much. I've sort of played around with it, but I know Affinity Designer, you can buy their whole kit for I don't know, less than a couple £100. It's kind of ridiculous really. But again, like Illustrator is like the industry standard for a lot of design. A lot of design companies use it. So it depends what you're kind of, are you looking for a job at a company that would be using Adobe Illustrator, or are you just looking to produce work for your own clients? And actually the clients don't really care what software you use as long as you create great work. So those would be some of the things that I would consider. But if budget isn't an option and you just want to use the best software, I mean, you're looking at someone who uses Illustrator all the time, every single day, and I don't use CorelDRAW, and it's worked out pretty well for me so far. So I don't know. Yeah, I think there's no right or wrong answer, but it does kind of depend what you're looking for. You know, if you're looking for a job at a company, and most companies would, let's say, use Illustrator, obviously depending on where you are in the world, then it's no good saying to that company, I know CorelDRAW, and they go, well, we don't use CorelDRAW. So yeah, it kind of depends what you're hoping to do. The perfume looks like an impressive perfume with woody notes. It's a cool perfume with its appearance. I like that, Sema. Woody notes. Paris says it's giving vampire vibes. Do you know what? It is actually. You're absolutely right there. It really is. I think to be fair, it's the furniture in the background. It's very kind of dark and moody, and we've got reds, blacks, and oranges, and we've got this kind of, you know, I could see Dracula sitting on that throne. That looks like the kind of chair that Dracula would own, I reckon. So yeah, I'm having that. I'm having the vampire vibes. Sema says, what's not good about the design, in my opinion, is at first I thought it was a sofa design instead of a perfume. Oh, what? So you kind of thought it was more about advertising furniture than the product. Yeah, I suppose you could say the product does kind of blend into the design quite a lot. I think this is just one of those things in design. You can go and you can have a lot of contrast in your design, and you can go full contrast, or you can have the background and the typography or the product, and you can have the colors all really similar, and you get a really nice synergy between all of the colors. So you just, you know, how well something stands out is something you've got to be mindful of. But I do like doing this a lot. I like having like one color theme that runs through my designs. Good spot, Zika. Yeah, the F for Fahrenheit is bigger than the rest, making it less symmetrical. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, can we make that smaller? I'm not sure if Fahrenheit, is this the actual logo? Like, I'm guessing that's the actual Fahrenheit logo for the product. And so we've kind of got a different version here. So I think actually maybe that logo should be up there. I don't think you should be probably writing it in your own way, but you know, I don't know. Maybe this, if I'm guessing, I'm just saying this is a project for fun, for practice, for your portfolio, rather than perhaps actually working with the brand Christian Dior on their perfume adverts. So, you know, in that sense, I think, yeah, go for it, have fun, be creative with it. But yeah, let's drop that F down just to kind of lean into that symmetry more. And obviously dropping that F, we could then shift the text here to the right, just so everything's kind of centrally aligned. How do we submit our work for you to review? There is a link in the stream description. There should be anyway. And you can upload PSD files, Illustrator files, JPEGs, PNGs. If you have context for the design, so you want to upload your inspiration behind it, what the project was, who it was for, whatever it is, the more information you can give me, the better. Just because it's more information for me to work with. Hey Dansky, greetings from Georgia. Hello, Henri. Welcome. Phil and I are one. Funny session last time on best behavior today. Nice. I like that. We are one. Luxury look with that 30% off tag feels like it breaks the this is luxury feel. Yes, I would be inclined to agree. Shadows are weird under the chair. Oh, good spot. Ah, yeah, they look photoshopped. Yeah, so I think that chair image is such a focal point of the design. It needs to be like really high res because that detail in that chair would look absolutely excellent. But unfortunately, it's quite pixely and blurry, so it sort of gets lost. Right, let's move on. I could sit and talk about design all day. Right, these next 4 are all by the same person, I think. So I kind of want to... Actually, I'm going to get these all together because they are all very similar. Oops, in their style. So let's get them all on one... Dan, what are you doing, you lemon? 2160. There we go. Okay. Sorry, I'm being a fool. Right, let's get them all on one canvas, and we can look at them all together because they all kind of have a very sort of similar feel to them. All right, there we go. Bop, 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 bop. Cool. Yeah, these are cool. They're really playful. Obviously, the food looks to be about sushi. We've got different logos on here, so I'm not sure if these were done separately to have different logos, but they're very clearly kind of stylized the same. And they're all by someone called Freddie, so I'm guessing these are all the same. And we've got this noodle logo here as well. So, but I'm not going to focus on the logos. I'm going to focus on the actual design. The photography, first of all, is really good. It actually makes these look quite appetizing. Actually, look at that egg. It's just beautiful. So perfect. Very, very nice. Oh, those noodles. God, it's making me hungry now. Oh, man. I'm getting really hungry. Anyway. Yeah, so the product photography, it's always really, really good to have decent product photography. There's a shop, not a shop. There's a food place around the corner from where we live, and they have the worst product photography on their website. It's like burgers, fries, pizza, that kind of thing. The product photography is really not great. But oh my goodness, the burgers are the best. The food they do is amazing. And the product photography just doesn't represent how nice their food is. So that's why product photography is so important. Because on their website, the food it didn't look great, but it was actually really good. So, but someone, a new customer wouldn't necessarily know that. They might look at the photos of the food and go, ugh, that's a bit rank. So, good photography can go a long way. These have been photographed, I would say professionally. They look very good. If you are like me and you're not a photographer, but you take your own photos, one thing that will have a tendency to do is look at it on the little camera screen and go, yep, that looks good. When you open it up, the photo looks too dark and it can be a bit underexposed. A really, really easy way to fix that is to add a brightness and contrast adjustment layer and just bump up the brightness. So obviously I'm doing it to an image that's been shot very well, but just imagine this is too dark and you can just brush over that product image and then play around with the brightness. And you'll be surprised how bumping just the brightness up like that, you can actually make an image go from looking rubbish to really, really good and a lot more professional. And trust me, because I've done it. I'm not known for my photography at all, but just using a few tricks like that, you can actually make photos look really professional. Just by, especially if they're just underexposed, just by kind of playing around with a few layers. And I just realized that wasn't on 100% then, so let's try that again. Yeah, if I just turn this off and on, you'll see kind of what I mean. It's probably a bit much now, but yeah, you can see it kind of just, I don't know, maybe actually. Yeah, it's not too bad. Bring that down a pinch. Yeah, I'd probably just brighten that up a pinch actually. It just kind of makes it pop off a bit more. It just kind of jumps off the page a bit more. Boosh. So yeah, nifty little tangent there. In terms of the font, I think it's really cute and playful. I love this. It's just got the little highlights and the shadow kind of marks here. It's a really cutesy font. It's a shame these illustrations are blurred. I think they look quite cute. I'll probably maybe not blur them. It just feels a bit weird that they're blurred here. Yeah, that red. Contrast on that isn't great against the background. Could you perhaps go with a bright yellow to kind of match the yellow from the egg yolk? And then darken the orange. Yellow, white, and orange could create quite a nice palette. Or just play around with the orange and the red to kind of just introduce a bit more contrast, perhaps. There's part of me that wants to, especially on this one over here, there's part of me that wants to criticize the spacing between each of the lines. And yeah, maybe you could tighten that up. You could scooch those up. So taste the best is all kind of clustered together. From the rest is all clustered together. And then you've got a bit more space to kind of make everything a bit bigger. But that being said, I don't mind it. It's because it's such a kind of playful font like this, I think you can kind of get away with it a bit more. If we were talking about Arial or Times New Roman or some, I guess, more ordinary font that is maybe sans serif and a bit less playful, I think it would look weird. Whereas this is kind of a very sort of specific playful font. You kind of get away with it a bit more. But we got to fix that alignment. We got to fix that alignment. Because if I just draw like a line down here like this, pick some bright colors. If I line that up to the center of the kind of bright yellowy lime green text, you can see that some of those words, all that is off. So I think we've either got to centrally align it, and then you've got to consider how does that work against this. Or what you could do is right align all of the words. As long as it's still clearly kind of the readability is still good, by right aligning all of these words, they're going to kind of line up quite nicely with this this half of the dish. And that's something that I always say in these streams a lot of the time is try to find relationships and visually link things together. So, you know, for here example, we've got text running vertical. We've got a very clear line here. Even if that was a box or a shape or something else, try and kind of work on that relationship between those two objects. So, okay, well, if you right align all the text, then it's going to line up to that shape on the right. So we're kind of building that relationship. Does that make sense? I'll try and find some other examples of that if I can, just to sort of try and explain it a bit better. But yeah, like when I'm designing and I'm positioning things in relationship to one another. So, you know, boxes, the styling, the position, it's all kind of in relation to other elements of the design. I don't just usually pick things randomly. I'm very like logical and methodical as a designer. So everything is kind of done with intent. Okay, a couple others. Sushi with a padlock. Higher res padlock, please, because we don't want pixelation around the edge. I mean, if not, you could even draw your own one of these. You could, with a, you know, even a mouse or a tablet, you could actually brush in your own padlock. That wouldn't be too difficult to do. And then what have we got here? Noughts and crosses. So again, yeah, in fact, actually, this is a really good example. Just going back to what I was saying about the relationship between one object and another. You know, we've got lots of different design elements here. Let me get a box. Let's get a nice big yellow box to illustrate what I'm waffling on about. So we've got lots of different images here. If I were to remove those grid lines, they would look messy. They would look completely random and scattered. The spacing would be off. It would be awful. But because we've introduced the grid line in the game of noughts and crosses, suddenly we've introduced structure. Now all of these different crosses and bits of sushi and whatever, they now don't feel random because we've anchored them to some kind of structure. So now they feel contained within their structure. So that would be this. Now that these all these random separate images are now contained within a visual structure, and there is like clearly a relationship between them and the grid, you could now treat this as one object. So whereas before we just had a bunch of random images that would be aligned to nothing, that we couldn't really work with, now what we can do is we can separate this design into two halves. We've got this top part and we've got the text. So what I would do with this text personally is, because this top design is actually very symmetrical, not in terms of the content, but in terms of its overall structure, because we've introduced more structure in the form of these guidelines. So we could actually now centrally align the text rather than having them kind of offset. And that would work. You could get away with it. If we centrally aligned the text here and then removed the guidelines, the whole thing it wouldn't work, because you wouldn't have any structure. There'd be no relationship between the text, and all of these X's and sushis would be totally random. So yeah, hopefully that was a slightly better example at kind of explaining the relationship, and specifically the relationship between objects based on their structure and their proximity to one another. That was a lot of words, but hopefully I did a good job explaining that. But if that was a terrible explanation, then let me know and I'll try again later. We'll come back to it. That bowl looks delicious. I agree, Christian, it does. Top two words should fit circular shape more. Yeah, maybe actually. That's a good shout. So imagine that the circle carries on, and could you fit the text to kind of almost fit that circle shape? That's a good shout. Sema says very creative and the image quality is excellent. Yeah, I think generally the product photography is really good. It just feels really playful. I like the playfulness of this. Especially, I wish these illustrations weren't blurred, because they are really cute. And you could even have these illustrations some of them could overlap the bowl. Some of them could be behind the bowl, and then you could introduce blur and introduce a bit of depth. Or even just have them in focus scattered around the empty space a bit more. Like you could put some up here, and yeah. And those illustrations paired with this kind of typeface, it just feels very fun. And the concept is nice, but the sushi unlock is kind of weird. That's the text. Unlock your new food. Yeah, I suppose it is a bit funny, isn't it? It's probably about as weird as playing noughts and crosses with sushi. I don't know. Could be a fun game. There could be something in that. Michael says, repeating the one image in the middle would imply the zero in tic-tac-toe better, and would probably read faster for the viewer. Repeating the one image in the middle would imply the zero. Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, you call it, I think, maybe that's a US thing, tic-tac-toe? In the UK, we call it noughts and crosses. Or I do anyway, just because we do noughts and crosses, yeah. So, I don't know. Maybe tic-tac-toe is the American version. We always have to have different words for things, don't we? Where are you from? I'm from the UK, southwest England, near Bristol. Yes, that's what we call it. Yeah. Tic-tac-toe. Who on earth came up with that name? Tic-tac-toe. Rolls quite nicely. I do like that. Much more than noughts and crosses. I mean, calling the game... Sorry, but the Brits calling the game noughts and crosses, that's like one step away from just calling it O's and X's or something. Very, very literal, isn't it? We call it katakati. Is that real? Is that legit? Where are you from? I'll believe anything at this point. In Canada, it's more commonly tic-tac-toe, but a decent percent of adults say noughts and crosses. Oh, okay. Excellent. It's not just a British thing then. Why are so many people impatient with this session? The whole point is you wait your turn and it'll get done. That's right, Phil. You tell them. Dan can only do one at a time. It's about learning from others' work too. Exactly. Thanks, Phil. Someone had to say it. I'm only one man. There's only so much I can get through. If I could review everything on all of them, I would do, but we call it X and O. X and O here. Oh, really? Where are you from, if you don't mind me asking? So literally, you just say the letters X and O. Wow, that's even more literal. Oh, okay, interesting. I'm not sure where Myanmar is, geography-wise. Hang on, I'm going to get a map. Let me get a map up. Myanmar. Okay, so Myanmar, Burma, sort of out towards India. And Khaled's from Algeria. Oh, amazing. Cool. I know where Algeria is. I don't need a map for that one. Oh, thank you, Alex. Oh, I appreciate that. Oh, there's a heart. I can press the little heart button. Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. That means a lot. Confusing copy on the top right. Let me just get rid of my line. Yeah, when you say confusing copy, what do you mean? What would you do to that? Oh, or do you mean the wording? Taste the best from the rest. Taste the best from... Does that make sense? Taste the best from the rest. Does that make sense? It feels like a commonly said phrase. Better than the rest? It feels like, yeah, is that like a commonly used phrase or like a play on a popular phrase? Or something like taste the best better than the rest. Something like that. Taste the best from the rest. Yeah, I don't think that makes sense, does it? Oh no, it doesn't make sense in the way I think I was reading it before. From the rest implies going somewhere else. Yeah, that's well spotted. That's a very odd one. Do you know, I do wonder, I mean, have you done this? I've done this before, where you'll change the copy where you can, change the actual wording to try and fit the design. Unfortunately, you've got to watch out for things like this where you might change it and go, yeah, design-wise, spot on. But grammatically, it doesn't actually make a whole lot of sense. Hutton says, I think all the captions for those need a rework. Yeah, maybe actually. Maybe we need to just maybe this does kind of need the help of a copywriter. Unlock your new food. That's it, Phil. Taste the best, forget the rest. Yes. I like it. Yeah, taste the best, forget the rest. Yeah, the word forget's got 6 characters, but that would make sense. I'm sure we could get that to work. Taste the best, forget the rest. Lovely. Oh, again, Alex. Oh, you absolute legend. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to heart that one again as well. There we go. Bink. Oh, amazing. That's why I meet with my copywriters beforehand. Yeah. Never underestimate the importance of copywriting. Or not copywriting, copywriters. And yeah, just working with designers. So they're happy. It makes sense from a branding and copywritten perspective, but also visually as well with the design side of things. Because yeah, my writers will be up the wall. Yeah, it's sometimes working. It's like anything. It's like managing those business relationships. Sometimes copywriters will word something and it will be perfectly worded, and they will be very proud of the beautiful wording. But it will be a nightmare to work with design-wise. There'll be too many words. The words will be very kind of they'll really kind of embellish the longer words and that use of vocabulary, and it just becomes very difficult for designers to work with. But equally, then we kind of focus on the design side of things, and yeah, not necessarily the wording. So it's about kind of having a good relationship with a copywriter. And usually, in the past, when I worked for a company, we would work with a copywriter together. So sometimes we'd sit there and they'd say, oh, well, what about wording it like this? And we'd say, design-wise, that's a bit difficult. Could you just give us a few less words? So they would then reword it, and we'd be like, oh, yeah, great. And we would kind of find that middle ground. I love that. My writers would be up the wall. That's good. I've been known to create a strapline or two. Also, it's open-ended. You've had the rest, now taste the best. Nice. You've had the best, try the best. Yeah, there's definitely a few different things we could change there with the wording, but design-wise, I think we could still keep the design. We wouldn't need to kind of mess around with that too much. Right. That was good fun. We've got one more. This is from Geo Mark Estrada. That is a wicked name. I love that name. Well done to your parents with that one. Excellent name. I mean, I love this. So cool. Straight off the bat, just absolutely love this. Got a nice little signature up there. Is Geo's signature, which is very smart. Team Secret. Okay, so I'm recognizing Rocket League and Epic Games. Team Secret. I'm guessing this is for and correct me if I'm wrong if you are still in the chat, Geo. It's for like maybe an esports team. So I'm guessing it's these guys here. KV1, NX, whatever that is, and then SAD. I don't know. I'm going to assume these are the kind of 3 members of the team. The team is called Team Secret. They play Rocket League, which is on the Epic Games Store. And it's got Team Secret around here. Team Secret. That's an interesting font, isn't it? That's a very, very, very cool looking font, actually. I do like that. And then we've got lots of Photoshop work. And I'm guessing these are our 3 team members. We've got one here with his Team Secret rocket pack on, this guy here, and then we've got one down here who, maybe that's SAD. He's kind of like crying for help. Trying to reach up. I think he's lost his rocket pack and it's not going well. Geo, hey, you're there. Excellent. And this is a really good example in terms of typography. I love this really kind of bold use of the word team secret here. I think some of it, perhaps, I would probably just remove that building there. Just maybe that one, just because some of it's obscured, and it's fine because your kind of brain does fill in the blanks. And we've got this nice kind of overlap effect here. I think maybe just removing that top building, just so we can see a bit more of the E, might make it just that little bit legible, but you still get that really cool kind of effect. I think maybe on this, just increase the spacing. The tracking seems a bit tight on the words. So maybe just increase that slightly. This is a really good use of another font. And this is kind of this. I'm glad actually that that you've done this, because you can see here we've got this kind of really bold font. It's clearly the title, the focal point of the design. We've got something that looks like a more kind of standard sans serif font here. I don't know what that is off the top of my head, but it looks pretty standard in caps and bold, which is nice, but it's kind of clearly set back from the main title. We've got another one down here. So we do have the introduction of another font, but again, it's caps and it's bold, and it's actually quite far away from all the other text. So even though you could look at this and go, okay, you've got your 3 fonts there, you've got your title, you've got the circle font, and then you've got this one down the bottom. That's 3 fonts, that's your limit. Well, no, because down here, we've got this other font. And you might say, well, that's 4 fonts, Dan. We talked about that. It's a bit naughty. But the reason that you can get away with this font is because, to me, this font feels very much part of the graphic and what's going on. This person is crying out for help. And this font, I'm not sure how to articulate this, but the font actually looks kind of like it's mimicking the emotion being conveyed by the person. So they're crying for help because they're falling off the building, and this font is just rough and scribbled and desperate and quick with a crazy stylized exclamation mark, as if they are crying for help. So the font feels like it echoes the emotion that this character would be conveying. So it kind of looks visually how you would imagine it to sound. Maybe that's just me, but that's kind of what I'm getting from that. It's kind of like a speech bubble, right? Minus actually having the speech bubble. And so to me, I don't really see that. And it's quite sort of, it's small, subtle, and part of the design. And it's very close to the character, kind of evoking that feeling of help, help, help. So to me, I don't actually see it in the same way as, you know, these other pieces of text in the design. And I think if you were to actually have that in like a more standard font, I don't think it would work in the same way. Okay, cool. The names below is their player naming game. Amazing. That was my guess. And then, of course, we've got the logos up here. And again, if all of these logos were just slapped on the design, you know, it would complicate the typography side of things, because we've just got more text and more. But what Geo's done is all of these logos are now contextualized by putting them on a banner that is hanging off of a blimp or a balloon or whatever this thing is. So now, if we just had all these logos on the design, we would see more fonts, we would see more text, things would look visually more complicated. But it's kind of like with the noughts and crosses, the X's and zeros, the tic-tac-toe, whatever it is. You had the sushi and the X's, but then you had the grid that gave them structure. And that structure meant that things just felt like a little bit less random. And because all of these logos and all these different fonts and bits of text, they're now contained within their own structure, which is this kind of flag hanging here. It kind of feels like its own separate thing, and it feels like it's part of the imagery and it's grey as well, so it's kind of set back. So when I'm looking at this as a piece of design work, I'm seeing the text in the middle, I'm seeing the other text, I'm seeing the names down here, but this isn't clashing with the text. Even though it's pretty close and even overlapping, it's set back with the grey and it's contained within its own flag and it feels like part of the graphic. And something else I love about this as well is we've got the buildings overlapping the text. We've got this kind of flag aspect kind of overlapping as well. One thing that would be cool is to maybe have the corner of the M overlapping here. So the flag is like going behind and then coming in front of this part. But regardless, you know, what it does is create depth. There's a lot of depth in this scene, especially as we've got the character in the foreground here. And then we've got some buildings and this big tall one. We've then got the text. Then we've got the stuff in the distance. And yeah. And it's really clever because it's a flat design, because of course it is, but it actually conveys a sense of depth, which is really cool. The only other thing I would love to see that I think would be really cool is some of these blue whooshy lines. Go and add some Benny style highlights to all of the characters, especially as they're all wearing black. You could add some real nice kind of blue glows coming off of those kind of lines, and try not to use opacity as well. This is something that I've done, and I still do this sometimes. I always forget. Yeah, when you're kind of working with these bright glowing lines and you use opacity, you can kind of get something like this, and I don't know, it makes it, and I get why you do it, to make certain parts less prominent, but it actually makes it just look a bit sort of murky. So try and avoid using that. Maybe I could demo one thing actually. Yeah, I'm not going to go and try and demo the highlights because if I rush it, it will just look rubbish. But yeah, add some really subtle highlights to the edges of the clothing, the helmet. So the light bursts are casting light on all the different subjects. But something else we could also do. Oops. Nope. Not like that. Let's try changing the blending mode. There we go. Yeah. Drama. Yeah, look at that. Boosh. Maybe that's a little bit much, but we could just add a bit more drama to it, just with a nice staggered highlight, something like that. You add in the highlights there and everything, and just whew, absolutely delicious. And what you could even do actually to make the text stand out even more is you could blur off some of this background in the distance. So all the stuff here is nicely in focus. I mean, you could even, if you wanted to, you could blur this guy out a little bit. I know it's blurring out a member of your team, but a bit of subtle blur here puts focus on the main kind of character and what's happening, and then you kind of blur out some of the stuff in the far background. So you kind of have this sort of staggered design of just stuff really close is blurred, then you've got all the main stuff in focus, the sort of meat and potatoes of the design, and then you've got the stuff that's further away blurred out. Because you've already got that sense of depth in there, it's just kind of leaning into that a bit more by introducing a bit of blur. I don't know, just something to consider. I love it personally. It's something that I do in all my designs. So, and because you've sort of done such a good job already kind of conveying that sense of depth, I think you could just maybe lean into it more. Or maybe not. But yeah, highlights, blue highlights would look so nice on those, on the black clothing for sure. Hutton says the help text reminds me of a comic. Yeah, it really does. I love it personally. I really do love it. Dutchy says, I'd consider cutting out the blimp and dropping the logos to the bottom. Yeah, I mean, you could do. I guess that could be another design, or what you could do is if you were to forego the signature here, lose the blimp, and have the text continue round in the circle, and have the logos 1, 2, and 3 at the top. Nice and small though, so they don't kind of interfere with the design. And one thing I would do personally, if it was my own design, for example, you know, there's a lot of white here that's being used to kind of make things stand out. Let me just try and do this really quickly. Rocket League. Let's pretend that's the let's pretend this is the Rocket League logo for a second. Rocket League, there we go. So I've got all the kind of main text in white. I've got logos and things I need to show. So let's do that there. And then I hope you don't mind me having a crack at this, Gio. I'm just going to mess around. Just try something quickly. Let's just quickly hide the signature for a second. There we go. Pretend that's good. Something that I've done with logos or names on movie posters or whatever in the past is take the logo and have it white or black and then change the blending mode to overlay. And you kind of get this really cool effect. So imagine these 3 Rocket Leagues are your 3 logos here. An overlay kind of, it blends the white or the black with the design, which can look quite cool. And you get some pretty, like, you can see it depends on the design it's covering. You either get something like that, or you get something quite crazy, which kind of blows out all the colors where that overlaps. So you can move it around and get some pretty cool effects. But then it's different to the white. So it's kind of like introducing variety in color without actually picking a specific color. So it's kind of determined by the background that's behind it. But it's still different to white. At least most of them are. This one on the right is pretty wild. And then you can flip it to black as well. Let's try that one in black. And it does the same thing, but it... and if the effect's a bit too strong, you can use soft light instead of overlay. Oops, black. So something like that. That's one way to kind of do it. And then you can see it kind of, it's darker, so it's set back. But yeah, really cool. Gio says, thank you. I appreciate your critique. I also uploaded another entry in the same contest, but I just uploaded it recently. Oh, amazing. Okay. Was that using the latest link? If you're using... so basically, the previous link, that won't work anymore. So if you're uploading any work now, it has to be using the link that's in the stream description for this stream. That's the only one that's active. So just to... if you uploaded it to the other link and you've not uploaded it today, then just sort of make sure you upload it again, just because this is the only active link now. Whooshy, that's a good one. Whooshy blue lines. Comic Sans. No, Phil, we're not using Comic Sans. Benny style highlights with this kind of design would be fire. Yes, absolutely. It really would. It's kind of, it's begging for those dramatic highlights, especially with the kind of crazy glows everywhere. Oh, amazing. Cool. Right. Boom. That is the last design. So yeah, thank you very much for everyone joining the stream. Time to go down. Catch you next time. Cheers, Phil. We're wrapping up anyway, so thank you for joining. If you'd like to check out my Adobe Illustrator course, don't forget to grab the 15% off discount code by signing up to my mailing list in the stream description. That course is for Adobe Illustrator. It will teach you everything that I know in about 5 to 6 hours. It's literally like the culmination of 17 years using Illustrator packaged up into a single course. So yeah, hopefully if that sounds good, then hopefully I'll see you in the community, which if you want to join the course, you also get access to a community where you can basically just direct message me. So if you ever get stuck, have questions or want feedback on your work, you can just basically do that anytime. And as long as I'm not asleep, I will reply. So yeah, hopefully that's helpful. But yeah, you've all been amazing. Thank you so much for joining the stream. It's been an absolute blast. Remember, the link is in the stream description if you want to upload your work. And as long as my laptop doesn't die again, I'll be back on Tuesday for more design review. So yeah, what day is it today? Thursday. I was going to say have a good weekend. Have a fantastic week and a good weekend. And I'll see you in the next one. Cool. Take care, guys.